What's the most out-of-touch thing you've heard someone say? With a hefty storm approaching England, a politician advised those in its path that they should maybe leave, and go to their second or third homes, to be safe. Reminds me of when the Ontario government destroyed the autism program, a politician suggested people take out mortgages on their homes to afford therapy for their autistic children. I'm in the industry and I've had families remortgage their house for therapies and supports. It's ridiculous. Mental health has been commercialized. It's not even about health anymore, it's about profits. I have an 18-year-old nephew who only just got his first job working part-time as a dishwasher. Immediately upon getting that job, his grandparents, who inherited their wealth from his great-grandmother, said they were kicking him out of the house. His grandparents are convinced they are helping him because they were kicked out when they were 18 and it built character. They would not listen to the fact that times have changed and rent prices in the area are $1,400 a month. He has no savings, $1,500 in medical debt, and other personal issues, but his grandparents think none of that matters and that he can easily go get a job that will support him. He just needs to work hard because people nowadays don't want to work. They haven't changed their minds at all about kicking him out and gave him 30 days to get out. He hadn't even gotten his first paycheck before they had this conversation with him. So I'm letting him stay in my spare bedroom because otherwise he would be homeless. They have no remorse over this at all. I am so glad he has you. You seem sad. My mother to my sister, at her husband's funeral. My sister's son was murdered. 2 weeks later my mom asked her if she was over it yet. One of my sons was murdered 12 years ago. Many people started telling me that I needed to move on after 4 to 6 weeks. My brother refuses to say my son's name, so I no longer speak to him. Sending my deepest condolences to your family from a mom who understands losing a child to homicide. My dad, who is now the director of accounting for the school district I teach for, was talking about how my starting pay was way more than his starting pay. I said, well, yeah. The cost of living has increased a ton since then. This motherfucker straight up said, no it hasn't. He started working there in 1992. This conversation happened in like 2017, about a year after I started working there. Again, he is the director of accounting. Offered to buy his house from him based on what it was worth in 1992. See if he changes his mind. Ah man. If he ever says something like this again, I'm absolutely gonna do that, lol. I went to an Ivy League college with lots of children of extraordinarily wealthy families. When discussing inequality and its effects on housing, my professor briefly mentioned how mortgages are out of reach of a growing number of Americans. The girl next to me stopped the class, and with a confused face asked the professor why people don't just buy their homes in cash outright, because surely the interest means it will cost them more over time. The professor was dumbfounded. I found out later that she is the heiress to a major luxury brand that you have all heard of. I wouldn't call toaster strudels a luxury brand. But otherwise that story was so fetch. Stop trying to make fetch happen. Aren't you a bit too old to have a grandma? A neighbor when I told her my grandma just passed away. My grandmother died last month. I'm 57. She was 100. I miss my Grammy, she was the best. Unlike your neighbor, who is a bitch. 100 is an achievement. Something like, give a rich person $500 and they will invest into $1,000. Give it to a poor person and they will spend it in a week. Yeah, exactly. Give it to someone whose needs are met and they can save. Give it to someone who needs to eat/pay rent, etc. They will spend it to survive. There's a concept in economics called the law of diminishing marginal utility. The more you have of a thing, income, in this case, the less useful each additional unit of that thing becomes. In other words, if you're handing out money, it will do the most good if you give it to the poorest people. Do not mention this concept around rich people, especially in a political context, because they can afford to spend more time arguing about it due to the law of diminishing marginal utility. When people were complaining about not being able to afford housing/food/living in general, one of the Dutch ministers, I think he was a minister or at least the leader of a party, said something along the line of, well, find a rich boyfriend then. Ah, yes, that will solve the crisis. Australia's ex-prime minister said that if we can't afford to rent, just buy a house. Fuck, I forgot about that. Scummo. Also, in the face of a nationwide bushfire emergency that required coordination at all levels of government to house the people who lost their houses, and needed logistic support, monetary help, and military help, he said, I don't hold a hose, mate. He was only on holiday in Hawaii. You should just go door to door to see if they're hiring. And don't take no for an answer. You need to call every day so they'll remember you. Again, courtesy of my mother, who last worked in the 80s before being a full-time SOM since. Other gems also include, you need to be happy to work OT, don't worry about the compensation, your boss would be happy with your dedication and promote you. I couldn't convince her that things changed since then and working isn't like what it used to be. My dad says the same garbage. Bear in mind, he never even had to do an interview. He worked in his dad's garage and inherited it. He's literally never had to look for a job in his entire life. The wife of the business owner complaining to the employees about how she's underpaid for working there. She literally owns the building and her family make 300-500K profit a year. All while underpaying the rest of the staff. My mom is a dental hygienist. The doctor's wife complaining non-stop during the 1 day a week she worked almost caused the entire office to walk out. She was whining about the vacation they just took on the same day they announced no one was getting holiday bonuses that year. That sounds like my SIL and her dentist husband during COVID. OMG, we may have to declare bankruptcy. Or sell the plane, boat and extra fun cars. He also took the PPP money and fired everyone. I don't know why people get big mortgages. Just save up for a few months and pay cash for a starter home. Is this person available as a friend who would buy one a house? He was in disbelief when I insisted that starter homes could not be bought for under $20,000. So he's not rich but just dumb? Sad, could have worked otherwise. I was waxing a woman's eyebrows once and she was complaining that sometimes after she gets a massage the pillow leaves a circular indent on her face and she can't go out to lunch after. She then asked me if that ever happened to me. I was like, ma'am, I wax people for $11 an hour, I'm not going out to lunch LOL, let alone getting massages. Same boat. I'm a barber. Had a walk in and he was just so, out of touch. But was trying to bond with me. Out of pity, I feel. He was lamenting that the economy is bad and I agreed. She said he was really devastated BC he could only afford 1 3-week vacation to Europe's this year. He then asked me where I was going for summer vacation and I told him the truth. I haven't had a legit vacation in 10 years. He seemed confused and told me to just not eat out for a month and I should be able to travel wherever easily. I just stopped talking at that point. Kicker, when I was checking him out he made a very dramatic pause and told me I did so well with his haircut that he was going to tip me extra. It was $15. Which is nice, don't get me wrong. But he was so overly enthusiastic about it and even added, "You're worth every penny," and gave me a wink, fucking wanker. My former landlord and his wife dropped by to tell me and my financially struggling 20-something roommates that they were raising the rent by nearly 25%. They said, "We noticed on Craigslist that neighbors had higher rent so we're doing the same." The wife then earnestly reminded us that we've been great tenants but maybe we just needed to find some higher paying jobs. You guessed it, the place was a dump with 0 repairs, he'd ignored them, to warrant any kind of rent increase. That's why the prices of so many things have gone up. It's all because someone sees what overinflated price somebody else is getting for whatever and it makes them believe that they could charge the same price. It's happening with fast food places visibly. Looking at Burger King and McDonald's as an example. I can no longer afford to eat at either. A guy in college was trying to find common ground with us when we were discussing how difficult it's been paying for college. I don't have college debt, but my parents are forcing me to only choose 2 new Apple product upgrades this year instead of 3. Similar situation, a woman in my law school class, I have to fly to Chicago this weekend to go shopping as there's no place here to buy hats. Another student was talking about trying to find interview clothes in non-standard sizes. This was before online shopping was a thing. I once knew a guy who'd fly from Jakarta to Italy to buy a luxury jacket. It's a totally different world for some. You just need to think positively and your entire life will change. She proceeded to turn around and yell at her son, then only 7, to get the fuck back in the truck, which he left because the baby was crying and he didn't know what to do. Oh no, wait. It was when she said she wouldn't let anyone disfigure her baby when the doctor was threatening to call CPS and report the baby as a failure to thrive because she didn't want the baby to have a feeding tube. Horrifying. Oh, and there was the time she told the toddler to sit down and do absolutely nothing. A 3-year-old. Coworker, you'll be able to buy a home once you get your inheritance. Me, I won't have an inheritance, my family isn't well off. Coworker, of course you have an inheritance. Everyone's parents leave them an inheritance. I'm sure they're just keeping it a secret from you to surprise you. Said to me by my coworker whose parents are both doctors, while my mom had recently been laid off and my dad was too sick to work. Yup. I'm sure my parents have a collective of $3.50 and a ham and cheese sandwich to pass down to me. I'll probably be left with debt. At my last job we weren't allowed to take PTO during the week of Christmas because that's when the company decided to do its inventory counts. All year we were told that week was blacked out, no PTO, all hands on deck. The day after Christmas, the branch manager sent out an email saying he had decided to extend his Christmas holiday and wouldn't be in that day. Another one from the same guy. The company had been acquired a year or so prior, and during an all-hands meeting the manager told us various perks had been cut because we weren't demonstrating profitability. The company was profitable, just not to the extent the parent company wanted. So no bonuses, no quarterly employee appreciation lunches, no annual company party, stuff like that. We were also in a hiring freeze. During the same meeting, the manager told us about the vacation he was going to be taking for the next 2 weeks. Some of us employees colloquially referred to it as the FU meeting.